Welcome back, everyone, to the State Farm Analyst Desk. As a quick update in terms of the stakes today, FlyQuest still has a chance to make it to quarters, but their fate is no longer in their own hands. Honestly, this is about the hardest scenario you can imagine, because top esports. I got actually different information from production earlier, so I'm actually going to update you in a second because I don't know if this is correct. Oh, yeah, it is. Sorry. If top beat Unicorns of Love, then UOL and Fly are eliminated. And what I was trying to say is, if top esports go 0-3, rather, and FlyQuest wins their next 2 games, including the one over top esports, that is the chance for the tiebreaker. Sorry to be confusing there. We want to get this right because it's important. But in this game, though, we talked before about how the first game of FlyQuest versus DRX was one that was even until it was not, and that came at the 20-minute mark. In this one, though, it was a whole different game, and it was over very early on. So could you have guessed that out of the draft that came out of these two teams? Amazing or not?
I personally couldn't have. I thought the draft was actually pretty fair for both parties. I don't think there was any advantage. Obviously, you knew that the top side of the map on DRX's side was going to dominate because they have the Jace and Galio interaction. So that in itself was already there. And on the left side, you knew that they're going to have scaling. They're going to have that Orin Asi coming in at some point. So we're kind of hoping, or I was kind of hoping for that late game scaling to set in. But if you lose within the first 15 minutes of the game, kind of which happened, it was pretty tough.
So the graphic is a little incorrect. It does say Leono, and that should be a Galio. But
it's day 8, guys. Sorry, we're just a bit.
Wanted to talk about that Galio specifically and how they banned away both the Orianna and the Kassadin was actually very clever, because I think that when you blind pick mid lane, especially on red side, it seems very odd. But FlyQuest, their game plan was clearly leave solo on weak side top, play through the bot side. Thank you, they've updated the graphic now.
No, that was never anything. I don't know what you're talking about. Galio's also there.
And the thing about the Galio, what it does is it mitigates your ability to play through bot side, because the ultimate can then deny you dives, or it can help facilitate your play through the top side. And I think that ultimately this whole game came down to playing through your side lanes, which DRX was able to do flawlessly.
Yeah, they did move around very quickly. One question I do want to ask is, I know we talk a lot about teams playing to their style, because I think it's important to at least inherently have something that you are familiar with. But if you know that there is a big difference between you and the team you're playing in terms of, I want to say, overall team skill and the way, you know, they're able to win games, I don't understand why you would then go all in on late completely if you're still going to try and make things happen early. That's confusing to me, but I don't know if that's...
It's a pretty good question. So obviously the multiple theories, like you can go for the fact that, hey, I'm going to bank on something I know maybe the enemy is not going to be able to destroy me in the early game, because when with standard pressure, and we've seen this in scrims, for example, that's like one theory. But then the other one, I think that's where the desperation maybe is a bit higher, is when you try to basically cheese your way to a victory. You go completely against what you're doing. You're trying to kind of shake things up, and I think that can really go both ways. Either you're going to lose really, really hard at that point, or you're going to have a cheese win. So I think in terms of volatility, I think it's obviously more prevalent in the second option. I do think for FlyQuest that is not an option, though. I think their playstyle is too standard, and they don't have the explosive players, or at least Ignite is underperforming right now, so I don't think that explosion is there. So in that regard, I don't think any cheese pick would have helped them here.
I think that's fair. Thank you for answering that. So let's take a look at some of the replays. I think on the side of DRX, they have a lot of global possibilities, and they really use that kind of to the maximum in their engages, especially this one in the mid lane that then transfers into the top lane.
Yeah, so this fight is really where things broke open. DRX already had a pretty significant gold advantage, but when FlyQuest trying to find a pick in mid, the fact that they were not able to get this kill, they also lost their mid laner, is really where everything started to cascade as well. Then this translate, Yeah,
this is basically where they reset and Doran immediately TPs and they make
the tempo that they're playing with is actually really impressive. Just obviously resetting the map after recall, going to the top set of the map, immediately having that Pantheon coming in. So that synergy is obviously there, and I think FlyQuest was almost always taken back by the speed that DRX was playing with, and I think that's something that, I mean, you can kind of understand, but also not, I would say, because you need to basically play through mid-prior every single time when you play against a Galio. Once you drop mid-prior, don't be on a silent. Just make sure you're gonna stay behind, have your mid keep pushing up, maybe facilitate through him.
I think it was just what I thought was also very clever was how when we actually saw the sieging situations, the amount of long range and poke that DRX's comp had, it was, unless FlyQuest got the perfect engage. There was no way to threaten the backline at all, which means that before a fight even starts, like before the
Half
Cloud
HP.
Drake in the mid lane, like they would lose half their HP before anything even happens. And DRX is like, well, okay, now we use our pro and we take the whole map. And it was just really good macro from DRX.
Yeah, very snappy decision making from the side of DRX. Convincing game, and the Oppo player of the game was Doran in the top lane. He had a 3K gold lead over Solo at 15 minutes into the game, and Santorin really didn't come close to that lane at all. They really sacked it completely and relied entirely on the own horn later, and I understand it. I totally understand it, but you know, Doran was able to completely take over.
So the issue with that though is obviously the Ornn Jace matchup is relatively Jace favored if Jace is able to like basically fight up or boards 24/7. But if you actually interact with that lane as a jungle or even through the mid power potentially, you can actually make something happen because the Ornn Horn is actually a kill potential at level 6. So you can decrease the volatility with which that lane is being played with if you give Solo some kind of agency within the early game. I think that's where they failed to deliver anything, because cross map also didn't work out for them. They didn't have anything that is delivered on the opposite side of the map. The Galio obviously denied that. The Senna was playing really defensive, and Pure farmed up a storm meanwhile. So make something happen would have been something I would have loved to see them make something happen anywhere. And
I think they tried though in the beginning, especially in the bot lane, but we had first there was no kill, then the hook unfortunately didn't land for what was supposed to be a sure kill, and you don't get that many opportunities versus a team like this. Versus good teams, I think that's a good way to put it. So I think we need to commend the fact that they did try and go for it, but it just went to the wayside really quickly. Unfortunately, also the difference, man, an LCK Jace, something else than an EU or an NA Jace, isn't it? It's crazy. Well, for more on that Jace and DRX's win, here's Laura with Doran.